These two pictures were taken in, again in 1929. This is the guest house. Picture on the left, the northwest corner, shows the balcony that extends out from the center hallway. And on the right is the south door of the guest house. And the pictures are Naomi and Alden Studebaker and his parents. This is looking down from the clubhouse at the first pump house. In 1937, they began to build the second pump house. This is the first one. And by this time, FDR established the WPA program and brought in 18 WPA workers to dig a 30-foot deep hole. Here they are digging with their Dob hats on. All dug by hand. And there's the foundation for the second pump house, 1937. In 1991, the Dune Acres Civic Improvement Foundation raised enough money to put in all new windows of the clubhouse. This was at the time that the town was refurbishing the logs. The entryway was totally replaced with all new logs, and then all the rotten logs were removed from the rest of the clubhouse, as is shown on the original tape. And after the windows were all in, the foundation sponsored a work day. 35 residents turned out and worked, cleaned up this pad, pulled the weeds, trimmed trees, painted logs, pulled out nails on all the logs and staples. In about 1995, the foundation paid for landscaping on both sides of the entryway. The deer did eat this poor Serbian spruce, but we fenced it and it came back. And now we continue to leave it fenced. Now we'll go inside. We wanted to try to comply with the wheelchair ordinances, and Tony Beluski, one of our residents, was kind enough to design this front porch, and it has wheelchair access coming up from the right side. The foundation also purchased a new entryway rug, and recently, 1998, had the floor painted gray. We also added these interior French doors. We believe there originally were doors hanging there. Another new addition as of about 2 years ago is this stair riser, automatic. Another innovation. Our clubhouse coordinator, Tom Roberts, had realized there were bricks under the oak painted floor. And with the help of Lee Lathrop and our maintenance man, Larry, he scraped all the old paint off and exposed these beautiful red bricks. This video is trying to catch up with the original one, where we had taped all the progress of the clubhouse every week from spring until November, when the log work was completed and the windows. This is the tape was lost. So this is the new kitchen. All the new cabinets. I think the beginning of the video may show where they tore the wall down. It was in the middle here, and took the bathroom out of the back part. We're hoping someday to have a salad sink right back here. The plumbing is still there. We purchased a professional range, a compliance hood, sucks all the air out of the entire place. On the work day, everybody painted all the ductwork on the ceiling, cleaned all the bricks on this fireplace. We also purchased this wonderful professional refrigerator. Bonnie Thomas is our clubhouse coordinator and takes immaculate care of the clubhouse. It's never looked so good. The latest purchase by the foundation are these beautiful cabinets to house all the history. Margaret Doyle and Jim Newman have worked diligently for the past half year collecting data, writing the history, and filling these wonderful cabinets. The painting is original here, drawn by Melton. US 20 is named after Melton. It's Melton Road. He designed the layout of the town. A friend of William Wirt, town founder. These are the original chairs. We have 35 of them, and we are in hope to have most of them recaned and refurbished gradually. Here's some more cases filled with historical documents. Then we painted the entire interior. Shows this pretty color. This is another antique case with a picture of Alden and Naomi Studebaker, their wedding pictures. All this has been done for the 75th anniversary year. This cabinet was originally by the south fireplace, and it had a top to it, which we removed. Mice did nothing but get into it. And had this painted and able to store some things in it now. Nancy Flanagan gave all the South Shore posters in memory of her husband, John. This wonderful chest was just given to the clubhouse I'm sorry, I don't know who donated this or found it, but it is an original dresser from the guest house. Another project that the foundation sponsored was an auction, a silent auction, of the paintings of Myrtle Witchen. Her daughter, Ann Witchen Goodfellow, had, after 25 years, taken them out of storage, cataloged them, and we auctioned them off and have three more in the clubhouse. This is a 1945 painting of the blowout. And these are our new windows from the inside. They're Anderson windows, roll out, and then we replace these big picture windows, thermal pane. This is another painting by Myrtle Witchen of the clubhouse and guest house. Tom Roberts has been finishing some of the original beautiful tables. The logs were all cleaned, as I mentioned before, and staples removed, touched up and painted. Bonnie had just suggested this old orange table be redone. It has a beautiful top. The clubhouse did own several of these beautiful photographs. This is the guest house and the clubhouse. But in the 70s, quite a bit of the furniture and one of these photographs was stolen. We feel more secure now with our new windows. Every window has a plaque with the donor's name on it. This is another extra bit of railing has been added too, so it connects with the other one. It was always a little bit difficult when one hit the beam trying to get up holding onto the railing. Just one more of the tables that Tom Roberts has refinished in the entryway with our new windows and all of these new logs, which the decision was made not to stain them brown. Plus the new double doors. I'd like to introduce Ruth Bremner. Ray Bremner,
yes.
who this will start in 1921. And she'll tell us how it all began.
Okay, well, my father bought a little portable house, and it had canvas striped awnings that went up and down for the walls, and it was screened also, and it had a roof and a floor, and he built it for my mother so they could honeymoon, and we were over here in what is now State Park at that time. But however, when the state park took it over, my father did not do a lease back or that kind of thing. He rented a little house, which was at the foot of this blowout.
Now Ridge Road.
Yeah, it was a little cottage type place. And he took his portable house down and brought it over there and put it up next to the little cottage that he was renting, and he and my mother used that for their bedroom. But when they first set it up, he just set it up on the sand. They came out the next weekend, and they walked into the house, and it went this way, and then it went that way, because the storm had blown around the house and put the thing up on a little hill. So then they had to spend that weekend shoring up that house, putting posts under it. Anyway, we stayed there until 1929. And shall we go upstairs?
Well, yeah, in 1929, the storm came in and washed it out.
Yes. In 1929, the storm came in and washed that little house out. And all that was left was the stand for the pump. Even the pump was gone. But my mother was an artist, and she didn't like the looks of that little cottage. So she got permission from the owner to paint it, and she painted it lavender. And for years after 1929, all up and down the beach, we would find lavender boards. So we knew it was our former house. The little canvas house totally disappeared. We never found anything left of that. But those were fun years. This road was made of clay. It didn't go all the way to the beach, but fairly far down. And when it rained, the clay came down onto the beach, and my brother and I thought that was the end of the world. We loved sliding in it. We got it all over us. It was great fun. Our housekeeper didn't like it very well, but we thought it was marvelous.
Okay, and that little house was located right across the street from where Bonnie Thomas's house is now. And we can go upstairs?
That'll be fun.
Well, we're up here in front of one of the new windows, the north alcove window. We did this tape back 5 years ago. Ruth agreed to come up here and tape when there was no window in, when the clubhouse was under construction. Unfortunately, we don't have that anymore, and so we are 5 years later redoing without the wind blowing her hair. But Ruth will tell us how she got to Dune Acres on the train and from the beginning.
All right. Well, when we had the little cottage down on the beach, we liked to come up sometimes earlier and later than we could stay at the cottage. So then we would come up here and stay at the guest house in the clubhouse. And I can remember walking down to our rooms because it was a separate building, and so you had to go down and then come back up. And the main thing that I remember about the meals, that they were really nice and served on checked tablecloths, and little maids served the dinner. And then after dinner, they had the little mints that looked like little marshmallows. Yeah, that's my biggest recollection of those meals, but they were good. My dad thought they were swell, and my mother. And so we did that a number of times. We stayed here at the clubhouse. And I also remember once walking down to the beach with my father when it was still too cold to go swimming, which was a terrible disappointment. And then I was exhausted coming back out, because I was pretty young then. Because in 1929, as I said before, our house went out, and then my father tried to buy a lot here in Dune Acres, but they were trying to get people to buy the lots away from the lake. And my father wanted a beach lot, and they wouldn't sell him one. So he bought a very nice lot, came up at Porter Beach, so he bought that one. And we've been there ever since. But of course we've had close relationships with many people in Dune Acres over the years, and we used to come to the parties in the 50s, and several people came and built here at the recommendation of my parents. One was, the first one was George Smith.
Oh.
And they had a little cottage on Porter Beach, and when it was sold, my mother persuaded them that they really needed to have a house in Dune Acres. And so they did. And then Ed McEwen was my father's attorney, and he came to Dune Acres. after my father introduced him to the dunes. And Sue and Fran Kelly were friends of ours, and they built because of coming to our house.
And you own the lot right behind where the McEwen house was.
Yes.
Is that the Forchetti house now?
That's the Forchetti house now, yes. Yeah, the McEwen house finally got taken down, and the Forchetti house went in there just a few years ago. Yes, I have the lot behind there, and someday perhaps we'll build there. Meanwhile, we're pretty well ensconced where we are, but it's nice to have.
Do you want to tell us how you got from the train station all the way over here?
Yeah, well, there was a cab. In fact, there were two cabs. Al Didlow had a cab, and Mr. King, and I never knew him as anything but Mr. King. And they would bring us over. They would come to the station. As a matter of fact, they would be at the station. I don't know whether that was arranged ahead of time or whether they just turned up there. But for at least 2 years, when we had the little cottage here at Dune Acres on the beach, my brother and I went to school in Chesterton. And my parents both worked in Chicago. So the cab driver, one or the other of them, would come and pick up my parents and take them to the train, and then he would come back for Bill and I and take us to St. Patrick's School. And that was a wonderful experience for us too. So we had some great experiences here. And one of the most outstanding ones was the time that they had about a 2-week seminar here, and Dr. Cowles himself came for that seminar.
Is it held at the clubhouse?
And it was held at the clubhouse, and they did allow children to come, provided that they behaved themselves. So my brother and I came to that seminar, and that was really an eye-opener for me. It made me appreciate more than just the beach and the swimming and the sand and so on, which had been my main interest. But I remember being very impressed by the fact that there were things that grew here that then didn't grow anyplace else, except maybe the cactus grew here and in the Southwest, but no place else, and so on. And that Dr. Cowles had quite a few things like that. And there were other speakers here, too. It was really a wonderful thing that they did then. It would be nice to do that.
What room did you stay in the guest house? Do you remember? Was
I
it
can't
6 or 9, one of those? I thought last time you'd mentioned the room number.
I think it was 6.
Looks like there were 12 rooms. So do you remember which floor you were on? There were 2 stories of
It was 2
rooms.
stories, definitely, yes. I think we were on the 2nd story most of the time, and my dad liked a room that looked down on the lake, so we would have that, or at least my parents would, and then we children may have had a room that didn't look down on the lake.
So you stayed out here until you built your house in Porter Beach?
And then we stayed here mostly for weekends, maybe a week at a time sometimes, but mostly we came for weekends when we couldn't use the other place. No, we went right from the house here, then we rented a little house in Porter Beach for a couple of years until we built over there. But
do you have recollections of the china and what it looked like?
well, it was all very nice. I remember
Yeah, I
that.
think because we still had some of the plain white, or it had some green on it.
Yeah, I think it was plain white, but it was all served really quite elegantly, for a
I guess Naomi Studebaker was one of the waitresses. She was Naomi Chelberg,
really.
and that's how she met Alden.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Her mother was doing the catering, Mrs. Chelberg.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Well, now I've undoubtedly met her, but I don't remember.
and you were, what, 6 or 7 at the
Yes, I
time?
was just, because in 1929 I became 6, so I was very little.
It's amazing that you remember.
I think Yeah, well, it was wonderful, you know. It was something to remember. And then by the time they had the symposium, I was about 11, I think. So they must have been in 34, 35, around in there. There should be a record of that someplace. And I don't know whether the old sign-in book for the hotel is here or not.
Yes, it is.
Because my dad's name should be in that,
Yes.
too. And we had wonderful times here, going way, way back.
We should see if we can find it down in the case.
That would be
After
fun.
your name.
That would be great. And,
How did your father find Dune Acres?
well, that was interesting, too, because my father was from Boston and my mother was from Buena Vista, Colorado. And they were working in Chicago, both of them, and met there. And my father wanted to have someplace to go for weekends. He thought it was nice to get away for weekends and maybe looking into the future to have a summer place because his family had always had a summer place on Cape Cod. So he asked around and they were told that the place to go was Lake Geneva. So one Saturday morning they went over and were going to get on the train at Lake Geneva, and so was everybody else in Chicago. And my father said, if everybody's going there, I don't think that's where I want to go. And so he said, you know, my friend Dan told me about a place the other way that's on Lake Michigan in Indiana, and it's a new train. And why don't we try that? So they went back across the loop, and the South Shore train had just started running recently. And so they got on that train, and they said they wanted to get off at the dunes. So they were let off at Tremont, and there was a horse and wagon there. And you climbed up on the wagon, and the wagon took you down to what is now State Park. The old Johnson Inn was there at that time, and Coffee Creek went out there, and that's where, very close to that, is where the first little portable house that my dad built went up.
And that was in late 21.
That was in spring of 21, because they were married on June 21st in 1921, and came out here that evening for their honeymoon because they were both working and they couldn't take the time off to really go anyplace a distance at that point in their lives. So, but then they came every weekend to the dunes, and they loved it. And when my father got here, he was so happy that they didn't go to Lake Geneva because he said, this is just like Cape Cod. So that was, he felt right at home here and just always loved it. And my mother did too. And she wasn't used to such a big lake, but she liked it just fine.
That's wonderful, Ruth. I thank you very much for taking the time.
Well, it's been a great pleasure.
I'm going to
You're so good at doing it.
just photograph this and looking down at the old guest house from
the old
here.
guest house. You'll see, I'm sure that's the same walkway
It is.
going right down there.
That was built by Mr. Studebaker, too.
That sounds good.
Well, here we are at the guest book, and I'm not sure this is focusing, but Ruth is holding the book, and we just found the first time they came out was January 1st, 1927, and then they came out every month. Ruth was, it even says, Ruth Frances Ray, 3.5 years old, and do you want to turn the page, Ruth?
Sure.
And they're just up and down about every 4 lines. Mr. and Mrs. William Ray and Ruth Frances Ray. And they stayed in room 7. And it just